FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 1/2/19. A new year is ahead of us. The old one is gone. A lot of the media is happy it's gone. If you saw NBC's New Year's coverage, it was stupefying. They talked about body parts that 12-year-olds are watching the darn show. It was disgusting beyond all belief, and that station deserves whatever happens to it. The people on CNN, they were doing controlled substances all night, and uncontrolled substances, I might add. So it was definitely a blast. Hey, we're having a blast so far in 2019. And we love it when you send us your emails. I'm only about 100 behind. I got an end-of-the-year rush. We're going to be doing a webinar with 4 or 5 of our experts to give you some guidance for what's going to happen in 2019. In the meantime, I've got noted federal employment attorney Jonathan Bell with us. We're talking about the so-called government shutdown, which applies to 25% of the federal operations, and I'm not sure how much that is of the workforce. Unessential workers aren't working, but unessential workers don't work anyway. Haven't noticed any difference. If you've noticed a difference, if the shutdowns affected you, then please send us an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And it is a total pleasure. So we got this shutdown, which isn't really a shutdown. It's a partial shutdown. And really, they should just shut down Congress and lay off all of their workers. And while they're at it, lay off the White House employees, too. And then let's have a real good old-fashioned shutdown, right?
Well, it's definitely very frustrating to the federal employees right now, especially the ones that are working, the essential workers, and don't know when the next time they're going to get paid is. That's a big frustration. And even for the furloughed employees, I mean, many of them do want to get back to work, and they do need their paychecks, and they want to get things going and get back to their standard day and normal living like a lot of us do.
Well, let me ask you a question. This one's always bothered me. If they're not essential employees, why do we need them? What's the difference between essential and non-essential? Can you explain that one to me?
Sure. Well, essential workers are... First of all, the non-essential workers really are essential for the government to function. The essential workers during a shutdown, what they're referring to are people that are there to protect, personal life, security, and property. So let me give you a for instance. So, everyone, the hot topic is the border control and the wall. These border patrol agents are essential employees. So right now, during the shutdown, they're working and not getting paid. So who are the non-essential workers? The non-essential workers are the mechanics, on the people working on their cars and human resources and things of that nature. Again, they're essential for the agency to function and for the government to work, but they're not essential for the security of the United States. So what's happening is the Border Patrol agents that are supposed to be patrolling and for security, now they're taking on some of the non-essential roles like vehicle inspection and maintenance and things of that nature, and actually getting taken away from their job to cover for those non-essential employees who are not there.
So in other words, it's bad.
That's the best example I could give you as to why these people are technically necessary. So essential versus non-essential is really just looked at in the realm of security.
I see. So as screwed up as the government normally is, it's functioning even worse now, right?
Absolutely, 100%, without question. and the sad thing about it is the fact that, for these non-essential workers, ultimately, just like every other shutdown, eventually they will be paid. When the shutdown's over and the government gets funded, they're going to be paid. The real losers are the taxpayers, right? Because we're paying all this money for certain services and certain things to get done, and now we're not getting the benefit of it. And it's not the fault of the federal employees; it's the fault of the Congress and politicians and basically using them as leverage for each party to try to get its way.
So how much longer do you think this thing can go on?
It's tough because, I know the last one in 2013 lasted 16 days. The reason why I think this one might go longer is because of the line in the sand negotiations. It's very hard to call anything a negotiation when you have a line in the sand. Both parties are doing it right now. I'm not blaming I'm not blaming one party versus the other. They're both at fault. But one thing they need to do is get to the table and negotiate and see if they could They should be negotiating 24 hours a day until they come to some type of final resolution to get this thing passed and have the government funded. In the meantime, they're really intervening with the lives of 800,000 federal employees. 420 are essential, and the rest 380 are non-essential. And to do it during this time, first of all, any time is tough, but during the holidays when people need their paychecks, they have to. A lot of people have to cancel their travel, not because they can't afford it, but also if you're an essential employee, and let's say you're going to visit your family out of state, and you made this arrangement and you got your pre-approval. Once a shutdown happens, all those pre-approvals get thrown in the garbage, and they require you to work. So there are people who not only paid for their airfare, they paid for their all-inclusive resort stays, or they're ready to see their family. They had to all cancel their vacations and actually go to work without receiving a paycheck until the shutdown is over.
So now there is a lawsuit against the federal government, one of the zillions, of course, but the basic premise is that you can't force people to work and not pay them, right?
Yeah, there's a Depression-era law called the Fair Labor Standards Act, which basically says that if you work, not only do you have to get paid, but you have to get paid on time. If you work overtime more than 40 hours in a week, you got to get paid time and a half for those hours worked over, as long as you're not exempt. Exempt employees are a different story. So even if you give them their pay at a different time, they're still entitled to something called liquidated damages.
Oh, this is cool. And, but they'll just raise the deficit. They don't really care. You know it, and I know it. But, hey, if they got to pay a few billion extra for this debacle, why not? So I'll just share with you a little personal story. The IRS screwed up my son's refund, and they screwed it up 2 or 3 times. He hasn't gotten it. So he called them the week before the shutdown, and they said, well, try, but it's not going to get out before that. Fortunately, the Friday before the government shut down that weekend, I got my refund from the IRS it had been bouncing around for years already. But I lucked out because otherwise I'd be on the hook waiting as well. So IRS, what are they considered vital? Or are they considered dispensable?
Well, I think the IRS has been affected by the shutdown, and they're considered non-essential, so they aren't working. I have some cases against some attorneys with the Department of Justice, at least the civil cases. I got emails from them requesting extensions of time because they can't work during the furlough. They can't even come in and do voluntary work. It's illegal for them to work when they're furloughed. So.
Yeah, and they're going to get paid for it anyway, or such has always been the case up to now, correct? They will get paid. Eventually,
they most likely will. I mean, there's never a 100% guarantee. The politicians have to agree, but every single shutdown in the past, they have been retroactively paid. Now, again, who knows how long a shutdown could go? Is it going to go for 10 days, 15 days, a month? I mean, a lot of these employees are paycheck-to-paycheck employees. A good number of them make less than $50,000, and another number makes between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. And a lot of them can't afford to be, even if they get the check late, and then they're going to get hit with fines and late fees from their mortgage companies and everything else.
Sure. Well, let me ask you a question. They do have, almost all the federal employees have federal credit unions, correct?
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, the credit unions will give them short-term loans against, they can't exactly secure their pay, but they're giving them short-term loans. They have that capability to do that, right?
Well, I don't know if they all are going to be valuable to get short-term loans. I don't know the answer to that question, if they all will be able to, and everyone has different circumstances, but I don't think that we could just rely on it to say, well, it's no big deal. I mean, again, living without a paycheck when you're paycheck to paycheck certainly stings, like I said, during the holiday time more than anything else.
Yeah, I got you. Well, it's not a pleasant situation. Maybe some things in the world are worth fighting for. They shouldn't be pawns. Hey, if they're not truly required, then get rid of them. If they're necessary, then you can't just exempt certain people and not exempt others. There's a certain unfairness to it all, isn't there?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Egypt is on the verge, once again, becoming a world-renowned gold producer. The golden age is being rediscovered. For millennia, ancient Egyptian kingdoms prospered from unparalleled riches. Pharaohs built their empires and flaunted their abundant wealth that was made possible by the country's resource-rich gold deposits. Despite this rich history, modern Egypt remains one of the most underdeveloped gold mining countries in the world. Aton Resources is at the center of the modern Egyptian mining world, diligently working both as the only public exploration company in Egypt today and as the advocate for mining reform with the Egyptian government. However, those that arrive early like Aton will reap the best rewards. Aton's discovery of the legendary Lost Mountain of Gold at Rodruin and its current aggressive drilling program there could potentially reap those rewards. Aton Resources is focused on its 100% owned Abu Marawat concession in the Arabian-Nubian Shield, located 200 kilometers north of Centamin Sakari's world-class gold mine. Aton possesses first-mover advantage in the underfollowed jurisdiction of Egypt, which is currently undergoing mining reform. To stay on top of Aton's latest drill results and news, go to atonresources.com. Aton trades on the TSX-V under the ticker AAN and on the OTC under the ticker ANLBF.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Yeah, I think there's an unfairness for the again, both political sides who again, these politicians are getting paid regularly. It's not affecting them or their family, and they're just using this to pressure each other for political purposes and promises, and it's just it's really not fair to these individual workers. And then you hear some people say, well, these federal employees, they're not necessary, and a lot of them get paid too much money. And in a lot of cases, that's just not the case. There's always an exception to every rule. But mostly these people are hardworking. They had options to go to private sector. They chose federal sector. Some of them was more than just financial reasons. They wanted to work. They wanted to, be good citizens, work for the country, bring good benefits to it, and to turn around and have something like this be brought against them. And at the same time, I think Trump just signed an order saying that they're not going to get pay raises this year. I think they were looking for like a 1.9% raise. I think their pay has been frozen for a little bit.
Yeah,
they're definitely feeling that their work is not being appreciated, to say the least.
Well, we know that for sure. There's just not enough accountability for the good workers to be given noteworthiness and the bad workers to be fired because it's so hard to get rid of them. So you don't know. And look, let's face it, working for the federal government, barring any shutdowns, it's basically money in the bank. And we can debate their contributions, but the fact of the matter is they've got a reputation, whether deserved or not. You look at the post office, all these different areas of government failure. And unfortunately, the employees get the butt of things partly because their unions have been so effective.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I hear that all the time, and I do. I'm in this game, right? I've been doing this for a long time. And yeah, the federal employees, some of them, not all of them, but some of them have some additional protections than the private sector employees. But at the end of the day, if you need to fire somebody and it's well documented, it's almost impossible for these people to keep their jobs. There is, first of all, probationary. You get rid of somebody for any reason at all. You don't even need a reason. Once you're over your probationary period, within some agencies it's 1 year or 2 years. In certain situations, not all situations, the person has the right to appeal it to an administrative forum called the Merit Systems Protection Board, the MSPB, where you go in front of a judge. Now, mind you, during that process, they're not being paid. But if they win and they prove that the removal was inappropriate, they get their job back, they get their back pay, they get their attorney's fees. But if they lose, they leave with nothing. So there is an extra protection there, and that's why people say federal employees are so difficult to terminate. But if you actually look at the statistics are weigh very heavily against the employee, and it's not that easy to win at the Merit Systems Protection Board.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a lot more detail, a little bit off the topic we were discussed, but since you brought it up, and since I hear that a lot,
mm-hmm.
Because it's become a regular soundbite, and it's very and that's what people like to hear. But in the reality, it's not always the truth. You could still remove people for disciplinary actions for doing something wrong, and you can remove someone for non-disciplinary for performance reasons, but they just have to be documented. It can't just be on a whim.
Yeah, well, I think that's a reasonable thing, but I think we've got some real issues with civil service protections. And look, I mean, I know the federal government is not the New York City public school system, but it's almost like they have these rubber rooms, and But hey, we're not here to debate the relative productivity or lack thereof of our federal employees, other than to say that, things really need to change.
Right.
The federal government.
You got to think the federal government is the country's biggest employer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at any big employer, any big company, you're going to have a lot of people that work hard and a lot of good people, and you're going to have some bad apples. It's going to happen everywhere.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can't let those few bad apples sour your taste for the rest of the employees, and that happens a little bit all too often. And I guess the negativity comes from the fact that, hey, who likes paying taxes? And you realize that a lot of your taxes are going to federal employees and their salaries. So right away it becomes a distasteful topic. And, and like I said, there are plenty of federal employees that don't work well and are bad apples. But again, there's plenty of them, or even more of them, that do a good job. Maybe we don't see the benefit on a day-to-day basis, but some of them we do. And some of them we actually enjoy the benefit, but we don't think about it. We don't realize it.
Yeah. Hey, I'm wholly on board with you. And, we can complain about them and all that until we want the government to do something, and then there's nobody there to do it. Then
right.
all of a sudden, everybody's unhappy, right?
Exactly.
So,
right.
It's all.
Right. Well, why are we wasting all our money on FEMA? But as soon as there's a disaster, then you're praying for FEMA to come and help out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot hypocritical, self-interest. Look, we've seen it over and over again. There's nothing new here, but
right.
Certainly the federal government needs to change this. I mean, we got all these federal employees charging up billions of dollars for porn and all sorts of other things. It's out of control, and we need some accountability here. Stop wasting the money. Congress is at fault for sure, but we need to end the party feeding at the trough in Washington and really get serious about this stuff. Really get serious about an efficient government that works and that serves us and not everyone else but the people. Hey, I could go on all day. Hey, if we want to find out more about you, Jonathan, where is the best place to find your work?
So my main office is in Garden City, Long Island, here in New York. I have an office in D.C. and Florida. Mm-hmm. Anyone could contact me with any questions, 855-JOHN-BELL, JONBELL, and my website is belllg.com.
All right.
So either way is a good method to reach out to us. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. We'll have a link to your site up on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Hey, if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. If you're listening anywhere else, share it with a friend. It really helps the show when you do that. The more people who listen, the better the show can get. And we've been doing it now. This is our 8th year. There's nothing else more in the world I want to do, and I want to keep doing it. So, hey, Jonathan, it's been a total pleasure having you on here, and we will look forward to having you on again. And again, just be part of the show and send us an email if you got any questions for Jonathan, KL@KerryLutz.com. And that's it for now. Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time and the chat. I think that our views may differ a little bit politically, but it's nice to come on to a show and just hear each side's view. So I appreciate it.
That's what it's all about, sharing views. And, let the listener, let the community member, let the watcher decide. And you know what? Sometimes both people can be right. Other times,
Sure.
both parties can be wrong. And
Sure.
if we don't listen, we'll never figure that out. So politics be damned. It's a blight on the society and on the world and the cause of so many bad things. Anyway, Jonathan, good luck in the new year. Thanks so much for joining us. New guest. We always love getting new guests. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Great. Thanks a lot. Take care. Have a great day.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.